Hi, welcome to the Corpus Christi Songwriter Podcast. I'm Jules.
I'm Jimmy.
I'm Garrett.
And I'm Carrie Denniston.
We have the lovely Carrie Denniston back on the podcast. Well, not back on the podcast, making her initial appearance here. It is overdue. Sadly, we apologize that we're like 8 or 9 episodes in now before having you on now, Carrie. But
What? I couldn't believe you asked me this soon. I'm thrilled. I'm like your biggest fan. I listen to this podcast as soon as it comes out every week.
Nice.
All right, we have a listener.
That makes one of us. No, I'm just kidding.
right, this is really like a fan sort of engagement episode where we take Q&A as well.
Yes.
Oh, no, I didn't prepare anything.
Fan singular, yeah. So, Carrie, I feel like I go out in this town and I narrowly miss you. Like, I feel like I know that you're at the surf club, but I'm like at retro and then I just don't see you or something, or like you got to get a bus and then I'm in the area and then somehow I miss you. But when I've seen you perform, I've typically seen you at our once a month, second Sunday sort of thing we do at the surf club. And I'm always really, taken by your material.
Really?
A fan of yours. Absolutely. Yeah. And I really
stuff.
enjoy it. Yeah. And you have stuff out on like streaming services and things to that end, right? Like on Spotify and things.
I finally, thanks to actually the, that music industry symposium, I finally like learned how to do that. I had never done that. So, basically the only people who had my music were the ones who bought my CD, 9 years ago or whatever it was.
Yeah.
So now it's on Spotify and all the streaming apps. Just that one album, it was my kind of starter. It's 6 songs. So hopefully I'll get something else recorded someday soon. I don't even know where to begin. I feel like even though I've, been a songwriter for a long time, technically, I was kind of out of the game for a while. And I just do people even make albums anymore? Like, should I just focus on a single? I don't know where to begin.
Yeah. You and me both. It's a weird area.
When did you record that album?
I should know the year. It was probably 8 years ago.
And were you here in Corpus then? I don't think so. Right? Yeah.
No, I lived in George West. I had just graduated college and I was kind of lost. So I was bartending in Swinney Switch. And
yes, that's where I think I met you at the Rumble of the River around that time at Brodak. Yes. Yeah. I remember that. That was me and David. Yeah.
Yeah. And I met Tony while I was bartending there, and he was recording Tyler McCumber's album, and he heard I was a singer, and so he asked if I would do backup vocals for Tyler, and I came in, shockingly nailed it. I don't know how this happened. I'm so bad at harmonies. I normally am not good at backup vocals, but I think I was just desperate for them to like me, and so I just did a really good job.
Just killed it.
Yeah, no, seriously. No, I mean, I'm not even tooting my own horn because you're not going to get me to do it again. I don't know how it worked out as well. Maybe something about Tyler's voice was just it screams the harmonies. Good. Oh, it's so cool. Yeah.
Which song, Carrie? What are you on? Which one?
Oh, a ton of them. Volume 1 and Volume 2, yeah.
Oh, okay. I've got that stuff. Are you on, what's that song? Oh, I love that one song that he used to play a lot. Rain? Is that song?
Yeah, I'm on that one. Oh,
yeah,
God,
that's my favorite. So good. Oh,
totally.
So good.
So I got asked about this. I have to, because I'm delighted to find out that you sang on Tyler's album, man. Tyler, to me, when I met Tyler, it was just an incredible sort of, I was like, dude, let me hang out with you. Let me do a story for Steam. Let me talk about your album. So it's interesting because the way that I got introduced to Tyler was through Chisholm Mills. And so I feel like if you're one more of these people that were kind of orbiting Tony Saracine in a way out of this little small area of time that I was unaware of until I showed up, and then all of a sudden there's Chisholm was playing with me. I get introduced to Tyler, and so when I was hanging out with Tyler, we talked about that song Rain for a little bit, and I don't know that I mentioned it in the article that I wrote about him. part of it was he told me how he had the backup singers come in and then he had him sing. The lyrics are "Come down from rain, Louisiana." Now the way
that was me. That was me. He's talking about. Yes, I just told this story the other day. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I'm just saying, and please, like, correct me.
Tell
on
us
this,
the story.
All I know about is that he was saying Louisiana, and he had the background singers sing Louisiana, and then he came back and listened to it and said, "Oh shit, boys, we gotta like do this again because you gotta listen to me. I was saying Louisiana. We can't have that mismatch, you know."
Yeah, that's nice to make it sound like he meant. I mean, he instantly heard that I was. I mean, I'm a Yankee. I was born in Connecticut. Like I was saying Louisiana. I wasn't even listening. Like, yeah, he's like Louisiana. It's like very southerny. Yeah, he caught it after one recording. He caught it, and luckily it was an easy fix. But yeah,
Cool.
Okay, I didn't knock it out of the park. I did mess up the pronunciation. But
Well, you know, it's funny. He told me that he had to have the background singers come back, and so that's funny how like some of these details get a little elastic. We'll say,
They
you
had to
know.
come back.
totally, yeah. I mean, I'm not even claiming that my memory is the truth because I mean, there was so much. We just were all just hanging out all the time, and who knows whose album we'd be working on. Like it was. You know, Jason Maddox is doing a song like, hey, you want some backup vocals or, you know, you want me to whatever, put down a guitar lick or, you know, whatever it was that someone could offer. We were just kind of sharing advice and talents. It was like this magical time. I didn't realize how crazy it was to be a part of. Like this doesn't just happen in the middle of nowhere, you know.
Just organically happens.
Right. We're just all gathered, all of these super talented
Dan
songwriters.
Brodag.
And what the hell?
It's like,
and Ty
what?
Dietz and Peg Rossi.
Oh man, yeah.
I mean,
It was like a perfect time and place for all of that to just transpire.
What years were we talking about?
I think it was, oh geez.
So around that time, it was the time that the Independent Thieves first got together and we were playing at Tyler's a lot. And that's around 2014, 2015. Does that sound about right?
Well, I was going to say 2013. But
that's what I was going to guess.
Yeah, but so.
But you were already,
maybe
definitely, Garrett, you guys were already playing together. Because Tony would talk about the Independent Thieves all the time. And I finally heard you guys at some point and just just thought you guys were amazing. Like Tony had talked you up and you lived up to the hype.
Sacarene, he came and saw us in a Ramsey Fest last time we were there. It was cool to see him. Because I think he's living there. He was living there. I don't know if he still is.
I'm pretty sure I started Sacarene. Am I wrong?
Sacarene. No, I think that's where I got it. I think I remember you saying it that way. And I have to do the emphasis.
Every time I would see him.
The Italian hand movement.
You have to do it.
No, but I would sing Tony Sacarene.
Yes, I remember.
Tony Sacarene.
Yes.
I don't think he loved that, but no, it was really cool because that's the only recording experience I really have. And it was so like laid back and we were all friends. Tony was my best friend during that time. We hung out all the time. And yet he was also this like crazy experienced, so talented, you know, asset, like producer, guitarist. Like he was so like taught me so much about music. And I don't know. I was so lucky to have that just moment in time and be there for that. I was only there like a year. And in that time, I was able to meet all of these great musicians and record, you know, basically a demo album. It's still like one of my proudest accomplishments, you know, in life. Nice. So, yeah.
It was speaking of talent, though. I mean, we can't pass over the fact that Tony Sacarene is an incredible guitarist, like insanely, like Jeff Beck level brilliance. Like if you've never heard this dude just like go off, like I think I saw them at Tony and Tyler at one of the Poor Day. When they were doing a songwriting like thing that they used to do at the Tarpon Inn, and this time it happened to be at Roberts Point Park underneath it wasn't in the little like auditorium thing, it was in the little stadium area, like where the picnic area is. But Sacarene was just like on fire. It was just insane, like mind blowing. Just my jaw just dropped the whole time. He's so good.
He really is. Yeah. I mean, and he's great to record with too. Did you guys ever do any recordings with him?
We did just a couple little things, and like we were trying to do it all separately with like, I'd lay down a track and then Owen that was playing fiddle with us would try it, and then David would lay something on top of that. And so we were trying to do it separately, and Tyler was like, no. You just need to put a mic in the middle of these guys and have them in a circle, do it in an acoustic, and just let them do what they're doing. And so I think there's a version of the song Wide River to Cross, which is like Levon Helm covered it. And it's a Buddy and Julie Miller song. And there's a version of that floating around somewhere of the 3-part harmony and us just doing that song. I need to find it.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I would love to hear that.
That was pretty much that. We did the song Katie. If you know our song Katie, we did that one, I think, a version of it. And I think Tyler played like the snare, but it wasn't a snare. He was just playing the top of like a bucket or a barrel or something for the background for like for the drum part. And it was just in the living room. It was just wide open and very free. And like we would stay all day and say, okay, let's try this now, or let's try this, or just, a super freeing environment. And I think had we not done that before going into Mason Shirley's studio, I don't think that album would have come out as good, because that time we really got a time to like not be at a gig, but like seeing each other, spending all day with each other and throwing ideas off each other and just playing together in a room without the pressure of playing to a crowd or having to playing over bar music or people being very loud. It was, it really kind of cemented the sound in that album. So
it's amazing and almost important for people to have an environment like that, like a safe environment to just like grow together.
It was awesome. Yeah, it was it was nothing like it.
So I guess you were a part of that environment for a little while, but let's go back a little bit further. When did you start playing piano, and when did you write your first song?
Yes.
Well, my mom forced me to take piano lessons, as many moms do. When I was, I don't know, like 10, I hated it. I cried and begged every week not to have to go. I've been singing since I could talk. I mean, I always loved to perform, but I didn't like the work of learning how to play piano. So finally, after a year, she let me quit. I should have continued, but I hated it so much that it probably would have beat the love of music out of me if I had kept doing it. It was just, it was like the environment too. It's not like some cool, like old rock star was teaching me piano, it was like an old lady in her like hot living room. And I don't know, it was just like really, really unpleasant. But anyway, when I was 18, in college in Boulder, I joined a band and we wanted to start doing originals. So we were all kind of separately trying to see if we could write a song. And so I went back to the piano. There were practice rooms in the dorms for music students. So I'd go down and mess around and wrote my first full song at 18. I mean, I definitely had messed around a lot with songwriting as a kid and teenager, but I would say I started actually writing true songs at 18.
Nice.
Wow. Yeah, my story is actually really similar. My dad.
So is mine.
my dad got me into guitar lessons at Clausen's Music, actually.
Oh, nice. Yep.
With one of the Clausens, I forget who, but it was just in this old dinky room in the back of Clausen's, and and I had this terrible gremlin guitar. It just all of it just was not built for success, and so within like 3 weeks I was done. But I still had that guitar, and then finally, like 4th grade, I pulled it out again. This was 2nd grade. 2 years later, 4th grade.
Oh man,
pulled it out again and,
early, yeah.
So,
man.
But yeah, I just remember being terrified of whoever Clausen this was in this closet of a room at Clausen's Music, and teaching me old classic country music. Basically, is what he was teaching me.
Yeah.
And the accountability part is terrifying with lessons. Like each
practice?
week. Yeah, right. Like you have homework and they know if you didn't do it. Like they can tell.
They really know.
Yeah. It's terrifying.
I have taught guitar since, or music in general since. And I have a requirement of 3 hours of practice a week for my students, which is 30 minutes a day. You can just
that
30
seems
minutes
so
a day.
doable.
It is, but it's so hard to get them to do that.
I know. It seems so doable as an adult, like thinking about it. But yeah, that was the same. I mean, that was pretty much my experience. I think probably around the same time, started learning classical guitar with this lady in one of the church buildings. And it was just kind of a miserable experience, and I kind of hated it. My mom had played guitar. We had an old Lotus, like a Japanese copy, like Martin, in the house when I was a kid. That's like the first guitar I played on because it's just always around. But so we were trying to learn classical guitar. She wanted me to learn kind of classical guitar, and I hated it. And I was dying to have an electric guitar because I love Jimi Hendrix. And so I got an electric guitar, like a cheap Japanese, like Strat copy, one Christmas, and that was it, man. And I pretty much quit lessons then, but started tab books, and just obsessed, just, learning by ear what I could and learning by tab what I could find. Yep.
So
I don't know anything about lessons, y'all. I didn't know that. Oh, no,
completely
that's benefit, dude. No, I got nothing, dude.
I sound like I'm going through a puberty. Anyway,
I was just saying, no, man. I just like my parents were like not really wanting to get me a guitar as they felt my grades would drop, and I'm like, nah, man, they're not going to drop. What are you talking about, dude? And then they got me a guitar and my grades dropped. And I'm like, well, I gotta teach myself this stuff, like, of course my grades dropped. But do you see how much progress I'm making on guitar? Like, I can almost play Tonics, if you could only see all the way through.
Oh, dude, that's a great song, though. Do you remember that song?
Starting out with, I was like, all right, what's this? A minor. Good. How do we do this? Like, man. Like trying to play the live, the band live. I mean, I remember saying like the lesson thing, man. Like I've met so many people that have like post-traumatic stress, out of lessons, especially classical music lessons, piano lessons, where, the confrontation of the accountability and falling short day after day and then deciding not to do it leaves a particular sort of emotional association with music. I call it music trauma in a way. It's it
is.
And like there's a very lovely woman at the Exchange I see from time to time who talks to me about how she was a classically trained pianist and was really good at what she did, but after some point in life put it away, and then and that became sort of a musical, a negative emotional affect sort of association that she had with it that keeps her as like this sort of exiled gift, like
it's an interesting way to put that.
Yeah. So anyway, so I wonder for y'all that had lessons, man, and just like I'm the guy here that has I've always wanted lessons, but part of me is also like, man, like do at what point do you have to give up the title of never having had a lesson or something? If you never had a lesson, then you carry that as like a prize belt in a way when you're younger, but so like. I don't know. The question that I had for y'all was like, you're talking about the responsibility and all that stuff, and you're talking about it sort of in a way that's nostalgic and warm and fuzzy right now, but like, so what was it about your particular experience that kept it in that emotional affect area that was positive and, something you can recount now and, and it's pleasant, whereas like, I know we've all met these other people who've had lessons that have these exiled gifts. So
yeah.
How did y'all stay in that domain? Yeah.
It burned. A lot of perks get burned.
Right.
Yeah. We're all playing music now. I mean, I think a lot of the people you hear the regret from are people who don't play music anymore. So they feel like they gave up, they left it behind. But we're still doing it. We just didn't do it the conventional way, or we didn't do it the way that our parents wanted us to, or whatever it was. But I mean, maybe there's less regret because we found our way back to music, right? So
well, maybe
I always thought it too. Is it?
I'm sorry to step on you.
Oh no!
Awkward pause.
Now everyone's just being way too polite.
No, so I just wanted to say, like, for you specifically, Carrie, as you said, you walked away from music for a little bit. Maybe this is a good foray into like how or what kind of happened that you left music for a while, and how did you go down into the mountain and then come back up into music? You know, like how did you make that journey, or what was that all about? You know,
it's probably a story as old as time. I met a boy, and that relationship was not conducive to creating music. So I married him, and we were married for 6 years, and I did not write one song for all those years. Not one thing. I tried once the first year that we were married, and it was, I don't remember the chords. I didn't write it down. I don't have it anymore. Yeah. But I played it for him, and he laughed at it, and that was it. I didn't. Yeah. It was all about, what's the point of being married if you still have to be so lonely? Like, it was probably really sappy, but it was what I felt, Yeah, of course. I think someone laughing at your song is worse than them criticizing it. It's really wrong. So I still performed. I still sang occasionally, but he had a lot of great qualities. I'm not trying to talk crap. But, he was a little possessive, and it wasn't a relationship that you could continue to pursue a passion or create art. So it was just, I married him when I was, I think, 23, 24. And it was just like, probably supposed to be like my first relationship. Like, here's what a toxic relationship is like. Now you know how to pick a husband, but unfortunately, I married him. I as soon as I got out of there and moved to Corpus a couple years ago, I just songs were coming to me. It was like they were just dropping in my lap. I was just making songs, not even about the trauma, just about new, different, crazy adventures or whatever. And then finally enough time, I think I was away from it for long enough to start writing about the trauma. So no regrets. I feel like it made me a better songwriter, even though it was a 6-year hiatus from songwriting. But yeah, that'll do it. I'm sure there's a lot of untapped musical talent out there that is being stifled because they're in a bad relationship.
Yeah, can you imagine? Man, that's what I was just thinking.
It's sad. It's depressing. Yeah.
Oh, you're telling me, man.
Yeah, your story is, again, quite simple, or simply very close to mine. My first marriage was the same thing from 2007 and 2011. I played maybe 5 gigs total, and wrote maybe, and I was part of a youth choir ministry and Catholic church before I decided not to be Catholic anymore after the first marriage. But so that's where all the songs were written were then, but it was all, just co-written by the people in the youth choir. And so, but in general, my focus on my own music for almost 4.5 years was just dormant. And so I feel that for sure.
Man, I didn't know that, Jimmy. I guess right after that is when I met you then, I guess.
Yeah, I just gotten back from that tour in 2006 with Hogue Cassidy and David Martinez.
That's right.
And then I met my future wife, and the rest is history. And 4.5 years later,
man,
nice.
Yeah.
Well, the Catholic Church would love to have you back, Jimmy. No, I found my way. I feel like I found my way back to the Catholic Church. Anyway, we don't need to make this about religion, but in kind of escaping where I was, I started going to church again and found a lot of beauty in it.
I want to talk about the Catholic Church now. Let's turn this into catechism podcast. I do, and I'm secular. I was just to say, Jimmy.
I was raised very Catholic.
You always mention something on this podcast that I didn't know about him before that makes me totally interested in having a conversation. He always says something it's off the cuff, nothing but I am interested in both Jimmy's reasons for going away from Catholicism and Carrie, your reasons to coming back to it. And I've been reading a philosopher who's a South Korean philosopher that teaches in Berlin, named Byung-Chul Han, and his book is called The Disappearance of Ritual. And he's talking about how rituals give us a sort of temporal housing for our lives, meaning that like when you have eras, just like as we've been describing before, this era of y'all out at Tyler's place, right, that occupies this time period in your life, right, and you look back on it as a time when like this is when the band started or whatever, right? Well, it's very similar to a milestone one might have of like, this is when I went to school, and this is when I graduated, and this is when I bought a house, and this is when I got married, and more and more the disappearance of ritual, he's referring to the disappearance of these kind of milestones in our life that give our lives temporal housing, as he calls it. So it's this really wild sort of, and then he goes into talking about kind of more immediate rituals, like religious rituals, and how rituals, you know, kind of allow you to the space to apply your attention in such a way that it kind of it helps render that temporal housing in a way if you have a ritual that you do perhaps every Sunday. And so me as like
that's cool.
Right. And so
that's
me
cool philosophy,
as like a secular guy, as an atheist, you know, I'm like, maybe Catholic Church onto something, man. Maybe this whole sit down, stand up every Sunday.
It's a
acquire
ritual.
A sense of peace. It's a ritual.
I will say more. I mean, that's what I loved about it was that safe. Yeah, that exactly. And all the other reasons that pulled me away from it, we don't need to get into that. but yeah, no, I agree with that for sure.
We grew up Catholic too. Yeah.
You walk into any Catholic church anywhere and it's the same mass. I mean, I there's something beautiful about that. It's like a universal connection. I like the oldness of it. The tradition. Like, I mean, I don't know if you guys have ever been to the cathedral downtown, but
yes,
that's probably part of what brought me back was being walking distance to the cathedral and how beautiful and old. Just the marble and the incense and the pomp and circumstance. I love that about the Catholic Church. I mean, a lot of people find it a little oppressive, but I get nostalgic for it because I was raised that way. So and the choir is so gorgeous there
they're
too.
Amazing. Yeah.
Hey, you know,
go ahead.
I was going to say that I did a bunch of research on fascists a while back, and you know, I'm filled with information about this random crazy shit, dude. I'm sorry, but anyway, so this Italian fascist named Julius Evola, who was a late in life convert to Sufi Islam. Because he was a radical traditionalist who, anyway, so he was a guy who was rejected by both the Nazis and the Italian fascists for being too radical, because what he wanted to do was infuse Italian and German fascism with a spiritual sort of element to it. He called the German Revolution a laughable revolution, and when he was questioned in a court in Italy if he was a fascist, he said, "No, I'm a super fascist." Anyway, this is the guy we're talking about, and he had some criticisms of the Catholic Church, which I thought were kind of funny, actually.
They're like, he's too
so
hardcore.
He was like, you know, at one point he was like, the Catholic Church, you know, it's just a little too sentimental.
Oh, God.
Brutal. You know, brutal, right? And y'all are like talking about this, like how the ritual, and I'm talking about the ritual too, how it delivers a sense of peace or whatever, right? But his whole criticism of the Catholic Church too was like, the Catholic Church, it doesn't really have a metaphysics, is what he would say.
Metaphysics? What?
Right?
Really?
In that like the oldest doctrines are like Sufi Islam, Hinduism, among world religions, right? So radical traditionalists, which I'm not trying to make the kids go, please don't go look up radical traditionalists and all that shit, all right? We're talking about fascists, actual fascists. But the fascists that are into spirituality tend to gravitate more towards Sufi Islam and Hinduism because of the age of the doctrine and because of the because some of those mostly have an esoteric as far as in addition to an exoteric practice. So it's kind of like if the Catholic churches, they don't have an esoteric practice, right? So like they don't have an internal heavily guarded secrets that only a few people know about, and you know, stuff like that, right? But so anyway, that's
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not in on it if that's the case.
If there is, yeah.
Right.
A lot of people would argue, but yeah.
Yeah.
So we've talked about Catholicism and fascists and what else. Anyway, Carrie, tell us
Sorry
a
for
little
that.
I'll always rely on you, Jules, for all those non sequiturs. Carrie, tell us a little bit about your process. Like how do you start writing a song? I'd like to know. Is it use piano first? Do you sit there and just play the keys and then, or is it a melody? Do you wake up with a melody in your head or a hook, a lyric?
I mean, it definitely varies. Like some songs are just like dropped in my lap, like where it feels like you've been given this thing that you're just a vessel, like that. Occasionally that happens, and that's amazing.
You're just finding the song. You're finding it out.
Yeah. I mean, that happened a week before the Songwriter Festival last year, which was good because Jimmy's always asking everybody how many songs they write a week. And I write 3 a year. And I'm like, I got to churn out more songs.
I always ask people that.
I thought you did. Yeah. Like in the rounds, that's one of your questions. You so how many songs, or maybe you say a month, but I'm always
do you have new songs?
I think we used to have a rule where you had to play new song, or at least songs that you had not played the month before.
Oh, that's
it's an unspoken rule.
We don't really enforce it as much these days. Since COVID, we're not as stringent on that kind of stuff. But but yeah, I don't think I was like, how many songs did you write this week?
How much you have?
I mean, no, I didn't mean you were mean about it, but I mean, if you're a prolific songwriter, you probably expect others to be somewhat prolific too.
I'm not,
he really is.
Right.
He says he isn't, but he is. Although it goes in cycles. Like there's seasons.
I'll go months without writing, and then I'll write 3 songs in a day. But
there's seasons, exactly. Yeah, and there's. I don't know, Carrie, if you have this kind of experience, but the songs that do drop into your lap, like they just kind of happen and you're just kind of like, you have a block of granite and you're just like chiseling away till you get to that song. It's in there already. But then there's sometimes like life circumstances that feel like they're conspiring you to write a song about them. Do you ever have that kind of situation where it's like these weird, these kind of disparate points seem to be connected in some way, and they're telling me this, or am I just like reading deeply into?
I mean, I don't know that happens to me, but I mean, I think you and I are very different songwriters. I remember one of the episodes, like you and Jules were talking about, when you're inspired by a historical happening or blah, blah, and Jimmy's like, yeah, I write about songs about being sad. Like I felt that. I was so thank God somebody said it. Like, can any of us just write about being sad for God's sake?
Yes.
So I don't know that I necessarily notice disparate points conspiring to make me, I'm just basically it's usually there's some kind of breakup situation, or pining, or whatever it is, and that's what makes me write a song. So sorry, I can't really hear it.
It's okay.
But anyway, no, that week before Songwriter Festival, I had gone back to my old house to finally get all the stuff I left behind a year before, and I was driving a U-Haul. Yeah, super super emotional weekend. Even though I knew it was right, but it was emotional. But as soon as I was in that U-Haul and I was on 281, the hum of the cab of the U-Haul, it's just whispering the song to me. I was feeling really proud and victorious. And it was the first time I've ever, I think, gotten a melody and lines at the same time.
Nice.
It was just writing itself in my head. And I was like, oh my God, I gotta get my voice memos out and record this.
The voice memo.
Yeah, right. And then as soon as I got to my apartment, I had to sit at the piano and just make it happen. And it happened really fast. Recorded the chords on keyboard, although I still feel like it should be played on guitar, but I don't have the skill. So
There's a few guitarists right here.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I would love some help. I'd love that in a studio too. I don't know what I'm doing next, but to answer your question, Jimmy, that's not usually how it goes. I think I write a lot of lines down about a situation over a period of time, and then when I finally force myself or find the time to sit at the keyboard, I try to pull it out, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. A lot of the time I don't have a melody though to start. I just have words.
So it's lines first usually.
Yeah.
Usually, yeah.
That's kind of the George Inslee method. He talks about the George Inslee, you list things that on this subject that you're thinking about, and you kind of consult that list, and for him it kind of happens organically. Like it just kind of comes out of that list of things.
And sometimes it takes forever. I like that one that made me cry when I debuted it in the rounds. Like that was 9 months of writing things down, trying to sit at the piano, trying to make it a song. I couldn't get it to work. It never made itself into a song. And then suddenly it was a song, just from one day at the piano when it worked. And I couldn't I think the first 50 times I sang that song, I couldn't do it without crying.
Oh man.
Yeah. It was like exhausting.
Yeah.
But it was one that I had wanted to write for so long, and I was still too close to it, and I just had to get further and further away. And I don't know if it's a numbing thing, like that I just needed to not be quite as emotional in order to write the song. Although I think it was Jules that said in another episode, sorry, I'm a super fan. I'm like quoting.
All right.
That's great.
Jules.
Well, yeah.
Yes.
But I think Jules was like, what am I supposed to re-traumatize myself every time I get on stage?
Yes.
Because,
Seriously.
You feel it when
you do, yeah.
When the musician you're watching or listening to feels it. Like it is important for them to be emotional about it, but at the same time, like I can't sing when I cry, so this isn't gonna work.
Yeah.
I gotta numb myself a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know,
And that's you're right though. I mean that's a legit.
yeah, like the other side of it is Jason Isbell in his most recent documentary was like singing this song about his daughter, and he broke down crying in the studio, and he was like, man, do we have cameras? These guys are gonna be like, this asshole's crying at his own song, you know. So there's, but I have given a lot of thought lately, because I feel like over the in terms of writing and in terms of like time and the vantage point that I've chosen to write and the songs that I've chosen to play for audiences that have become my repertoire, to a degree, they've always been in a sort of egoist vantage point to where like I wish to have almost like that Jacob Dylan affect, to where he can just breathily say, like, they used to call me a bleeder. You know, and he speaks singing in that. And he's asserting a sort of grim reality about a set of, like, unenviable conditions that, but he's doing it in such a way that he's fucking like James Dean when he says this to you, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So like that affect and shit has been something that I've tried to center in the delivery and placement of a lot of the things that I've written over the years. But over the course of time, I've found that you find these songs that make you cry when you're trying to integrate them into like muscle movement, when you're learning the song, when you're writing the song, and when you're getting into assimilating the song into you so that you can just go out and do it.
Yeah.
You do sometimes within the course of that encounter these songs that just bring tears from your eyes, and you have to work through that as a writer in order to get to it. And I'm telling this to y'all with like, it's wild. I mean, I once was like writing or trying to figure out that Steve Earle song Goodbye. I think I talked about it with Emma James a bit.
God, it's so good.
And like I remember I was in my apartment in New York, and my buddy Ian came over in the middle of that, and he's like, "Oh, hey, what's up, bro? You crying?" I just walked in, nothing, and I'm like, "Yeah, I'm trying to work my way through this song." He's like, "Oh, I feel that. What song?"
So good.
Like just, so it was really cool at the time. But so I guess the questions the question that centers that I think most into I say all that to ask, like, Ralph Murphy had a couple. He was a Canadian songwriter, country music Hall of Fame, Canadian country music Hall of Fame guy. He has some like 3 golden rules that you can't break or violate for songwriting, and number 1 is like you're never a loser, and number 2, you're never over 30. And now I know a lot of people violate those rules, and when they write from their vantage point, from their perspective, right?
Yeah.
But I'm curious to know from you, Carrie, like, how sad is a man allowed to be as in the delivery of a song? You know what I'm saying? Like, because you could be Hank Williams and do it in that style, and it's like, wow, woe is him, man. But like, there seems to be a threshold to where it's not cool anymore.
I totally disagree. I mean,
so you think?
Okay. So I'd like to hear what you. Yeah. What do you think about? Yeah.
Well, I guess maybe I don't fully understand the question, but I just feel like, I mean, I love so much Bob Dylan that feels so sad.
I know, it's so good.
I guess what I'm saying is, to the degree that, you write songs that are about the breakup or about the sort of beginning or endings of love, right? Taylor Swift can write songs that are almost like venting about an ex-partner, right? Yeah. Women are allowed to write them, but Ralph Murphy also has this no whining, no preaching, no venting sort of
venting.
Right?
Interesting.
Right. So, and at times I've thought you should add a 4th onto there for modern times of like no trauma dumping. Maybe, because it seems like there's anyway. So the point is that for writers that are men,
I don't think I'll ever write a song again. Yeah,
right.
Right. Okay, so so I'm gonna say, like, so how many of your songs you're writing? Would you say, like, what percentage are you a loser per se? And is the character you're writing about a loser from a loser perspective? Right, that makes it a sad song.
God, and that's so much better than winter songs generally. I would think.
I know, yeah.
Or maybe I just relate to loser songs. I don't know, but I don't want you telling me how cool you are or how you've won anything. Like, I want to hear about the raw, like, rejection or like desolation, loneliness. Like, that's what I want to listen to most of the time. I mean, sometimes I like happy songs, I guess, but sometimes I like happy songs. Yeah. I love that. Sorry, Blaze Foley just came into my head, but I love how sad that song is. Anyway, I digress. I think man or woman, venting and loneliness and losing are all allowed. I would say Bob Dylan's got a lot of venting songs too.
Oh yeah, he's got a lot of kind of attacking like an ex-partner song.
It's all right. Yeah.
I
mean,
just like a woman. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's a great song.
Yeah.
But so going back to this, so Jules, what you're talking about, like, so this kind of re-traumatizing myself and like, so Jason Isbell, going back to Jason Isbell, said, if you're not writing some songs that are making you cry sometimes, why are you even writing them? But also on the other side of that, or maybe the same side, Joni Mitchell also once said, songwriting is not like being a painter. Painter doesn't have to go up on stage and repaint his painting every time. When you are a songwriter, you go up on stage and you've got to relive. I mean, it's part of the thing, like it's part of the journey. Like, I don't know. That's a tough thing. I know I get choked up. I get choked up sometimes too when I'm singing my tunes.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm literally in the midst of my divorce album that I keep talking about. So I think just any one of those songs alone would disqualify me from, I guess, those rules that you've laid out, Jules. So
right. And these are rules that, like, I have listened to Ralph Murphy deliver this, and maybe I can find a link to share in the show notes or something for this YouTube lecture delivered by Ralph. He talks really fast during this stuff too. It's like he's basically saying stuff like, "Hey man, if you want to play at 10 o'clock the rest of your life, then this lecture's not for you. But if you want to be able to write a song that can be played at 7:45 in the morning." At a time when a person has not had their coffee and has their kid in the backseat and all they want to hear about is news, weather, and traffic. If you can write a song that can be played in that time frame and reach a listener in those conditions and circumstances, then, you know. So little bits of, like, I don't know if it's wisdom or advice or what you'd call it, you know, but there are things that I held on to and keep in mind. And I don't know that I obey them. And I think that the purpose of telling you all that preface, you know, before was that I think I'm, you know, in the stuff that I've been writing somewhat recently, I've been more overtly breaking those rules, not necessarily wanting to be a loser in the songs, because I feel like a lot of my songs, they could be sad or they could be but like, I'm not trying to, I think I try to follow that first rule as closely as I can, which is not always possible. But anyway, so the question of the degree of, like, how sad is a man allowed to be? You know, I feel like maybe you're allowed to do it, but it has to be humorous, perhaps. So, like, you know, something like Jerry Reed singing the divorce song or something like that, you know, about how it's why didn't I learn to cook, basically, is what he asked at the end. You know, I think about, I don't know, some country songs like "There's My House" and, you know, "At My Front Yard," but that ain't my truck, or something that way. But then I think back to, you know, Hank Williams Sr. with titles like my boy calls another man daddy, or, you know, stuff like that. And at what point, if we're gonna, like, consider Ralph's, like, things like, and not as, like, strictly as Ralph may intend, but it's solid sort of songwriting advice. And then sometimes as a writer, you find that you are writing for yourself, and not necessarily writing to reveal the listener to themselves.
So this is what's interesting, Jules.
That's interesting.
I've been thinking about this through all of this. I just saw this. I'm blanking on the name, which is why I didn't mention it as soon as it popped into my head. He's a producer, and you guys are probably all going to Google it and be like, Carrie, how did you not know this guy's name? But anyway, his whole thing is you should always be writing for yourself. You shouldn't be writing for an audience. The best films, the best art, the best songs, the artist made for themselves. It should be like a diary entry.
That's Rick Rubin's advice.
Thank you.
That's Rick Rubin. Yeah. Okay. That's not so.
So, and which, by the way, maybe I just loved this quote because I caught so much flack in college. I majored in creative writing, fiction, and this sounds like a diary entry was what people love to say to me. And I loved that he's, like, saying that as a compliment, you know, so maybe I just took it really personally. And that's why I like the advice so much, because I already do that. I'm not really writing it for anybody else. Sometimes I'll try to force, like, a bridge or a catchy chorus or something for somebody else, you know, for the audience to at least have an interest in it. But otherwise, you know, especially at this point in my life, I'm not trying to get a hit song, you know. I love it when people connect with my songs, but first and foremost, I think I'm doing it for me. And if other people like it, that makes me really, really happy. But
I also think that, you know, it's not just about how sad are we allowed to be as men, or I guess as writers in general, without breaking those rules. I think it also comes from, like, a songwriter versus persona. If you have this one persona, I guess that limits how sad you can present yourself, because you're talking about these people that have a certain persona, and they have their audience that gauges them through that persona. So I think that's a big part of it.
I think it's also too, like, it sounds like it's a if you want to, well, he might have, I don't know, Jules, I don't know that songwriter, but if he was anything like Tom T. Hall or one of those dudes that, like, you know, like, they were career songwriters. Like, they wrote, you know, 9 to 5, kind of like Richard Thompson, but like some of those early Nashville cats, like, those guys wrote as their job, and they were looking, you're right, they were looking to get that song to as big of a audience as possible and to connect with as many people as possible. Tom T. Hall, he has a songwriting book, which Tom T. Hall is amazing if you've never jammed any of his songs, but he's got a songwriting book that's like his advice, which is, I've never been able to follow it, but, like, every line has to be a complete statement. Like, you can't have part of a phrase and then onto the next line have the rest of the phrase. It's all going to be self-contained. And that's what he did, you know, and he followed that, you know. But Tom T. Hall, to be fair, people covered his songs and, like, made huge hits out of them. Like, Harper Valley PTA, like that was a huge song for, is that Jenny C. Riley? I don't remember, but I guess it's depending on your audience. Like, what are your aims with these songs? Like, are you trying to like, and I think I do a little bit of both because, I mean, of course, I feel like I write some songs about like, you know, my marriage or my life or my being frustrated with my job. My day job is so intense, guys. It sucks. But then there's a part of me too that really loves the band and loves old school ballads where you're writing about a subject or a war or a, you know, an event, or like Jules with you, where you talk about unions and stuff, and then the, you know, labor movement, and where you're writing about a historical event, but finding the emotion within that. And I think that's part of why I fell in love with the band. When the first time I heard The Night They Drove Old Dixie Down, or you know, any of those songs, you know, they come from it, like King Harvest Surely Will Come, like that, like all that, like kind of like about, you know, turn of the century life. Them finding the emotion in those songs connected with me with stories that I would not have been interested in, you know? And that's a different kind of songwriting where you're kind of like, you're finding the humanity in this already existing historical thing, or this kind of imagined historical thing, and kind of bringing it to life. Like when I was teaching, I used the band a lot because I talked about like, because I was part of a history triad, and I would talk about like, I was the writing like instructor of that triad, and I would talk about like, man, history's not boring. You guys need to hear these songs. You need to see the movie Lone Star. Like I always talk about Lone Star, where, what did Faulkner say? The past isn't dead. The past isn't even past. Like, yeah. So like, there's a lot of, I think that's a fascinating thing. And that's like, I feel like that's the graduation version of songwriting. It's when you're like able to write about these other subjects and find the humanity in them and still come across in that song for a wider audience to be connected to it, you know, to like say, okay, I recognize the humanity in that song, or that does make me cry, even though I have no connection to this historical event, you know, like I think that's really powerful, but it's not something everybody can do. And it's, you know, it's Bob can do it. Bob does it sometimes. Steve Earle, talking about Steve Earle does it, like the Mountain. Dude, that all of that stuff, Harlan Man, all that stuff about mining.
Oh,
and like,
yeah. Oh, and the Ghost of West Virginia.
Ghost of West Virginia,
which is incredible.
Those things made me both interested in songwriting and then interested in history. And that was a huge thing for me when I was growing up. The first time I saw The Last Waltz, like just blew my mind that you could write about these subjects and still express the humanity in them and bring it to life. Like it's a real living thing that, you know, people experienced, and you don't necessarily get that from a dry text the way you do from a, you know, like, God, man, is there anything better than the band? You know, like some of those songs are just, God, they're just so good.
Yeah.
I mean, you're just talking about, you know, drawing the human aspect or the emotional aspect out of, you know, just a simple history, a song about history. That's what makes music, right? Is the emotional aspect of it. So that can run the gamut from happy to sad and everything between. Yeah. You can have your angry songs. And so I don't know. I take issue with some of those rules that you brought up.
Right.
And they're rules,
they're rules and they're recommendations.
Whatever.
And I totally, I get it. I've met, you know, guys who just,
because I'll express myself however the fuck I want to express myself. And if you want to listen to it, then
right.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like, I feel like there's so many rules that you think, I mean, whether it's verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, whatever, like I have to hit this framework.
The classic.
And yet, like, some of my favorite songs don't, I mean, it doesn't mean that I can write a song that doesn't hit that format that's good. I mean, but shouldn't I try? Like, shouldn't we try to make songs that break rules and maybe they're still going to be awesome? I mean, let's go for it. Like, I don't know who writes these rules.
It's good to have guidelines.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
Right.
And some of the best stuff comes from those guidelines and taking yourself right to the edge, you know, but it's also good to just express yourself however you want to, and don't be held back from that.
I think guidelines help, when you're first starting out too. Like, if you don't know what you're doing yet, guidelines make it easier, if anything. And then as you get to know yourself as a songwriter more, you can delve into all sorts of crazy stuff and experiment and see what sticks or what you like, what you're proud of. But yeah, I mean, no, guidelines aren't bad. I'm not against them, but that doesn't mean I'm going to follow them.
At the same time, I would
That's
say,
a great
like,
quote.
yeah.
That's the full quote of the episode.
I'd also say, like, if you're gonna break rules, there's something to be said for just fucking doing it. And I mean, like, do it and then continue doing it. Like, and a good example of this, like, so one of my instructors was a guy who was an engineer that had engineered for like Tool and Dr. Dre, and he was like the coolest professor at this school. And
where was this, Jules?
And this was in Arizona at a place called the Conservatory of Recording Arts and Sciences back in like 2005. Jerry Fimbres was his name. And Jerry, one of his friends was Zach De La Rocha. And before Zach had like formed Rage Against the Machine, he and Zach would hang out, and Jerry was a writer. But Jerry tells us one day after, he's like, this is what he's known for, is doing these really cool projects, right? And that's why he's an instructor at this school, and that's why we're paying all this money to be there. But he tells us one day, he's like, you guys ever heard that song by Ski Low, Balla? And I was like, now all of us were like, oh yeah, I wish it was a Balla, wish it was a shot collar, whatever, wish I had a girl with collar, that shit, right? And he's like, yeah, I co-wrote that with my friend, and we just decided to write the dumbest thing we could imagine,
and it came huge.
And when they offered $10,000 to us for the song, we took it and ran and thought we got the best end of that deal that could have ever possibly been had.
It's awesome.
And that's all they got for that song. They split it between them, and everybody, knows that song, even if you were born after that song came out.
Yeah.
So, it's like there's something to be said that, like, the thing that they could have monetized in their entire career came from them, taking aim at these boundaries and being like, no, we're going to do exactly that thing that was said not to do.
Yeah.
So
it's great. That's probably why I like to read. I love songwriting books. Like, I don't know if you guys have ever read Songwriters on Songwriting, the Paul Zolo. Like, it's just there's 2 volumes of it, and it's incredible. It's just him sitting with like Paul Simon and Neil Young and Bob Dylan and Townes Van Zandt, like everybody that you could think of, and just talking about songwriting. But what's also really cool, I love to read books about writing, like just in general. Like Stephen King's On Writing is amazing. And it really, it screwed up my writing for a long time because I was like, oh, I got to be like this and I got to do this. And, but I love to hear about people writing and the things that make them write and get them to write. And, I like writing and I like to know about writing. And that's kind of like, it always inspires me to do more songwriting when I read that kind of stuff.
Have you read Ray Bradbury's book on writing? Some of
the like passages. I haven't read the whole thing.
Yeah, it's just a collection of essays he wrote throughout his life that they put together into a book that he wrote a foreword for. But it was illuminating for sure. Yeah. I forget the name of it right now. I guess I can Google it in the background, but
I think it's just
too lazy for that.
The Art of Writing or something. It's really simple, I think.
Yeah, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah. I think you were reading that in my car when we went to a gig one time.
Oh my God. It was with you. That's right. We were was in the back seat of your car just with you and Avi driving back from a gig, and we had stopped at the Half Price Books.
Oh, that's right. And
I found it in that Half Price Books. That's when I read that for the first time.
So you really did read it. You have a witness.
I really did.
One of those guys that names books that you've never read.
I've been getting a lot of inspiration out of epic poems lately for some reason.
Yes.
Like, I've been reading a lot of Dante.
Dude,
and
so good.
And recently I've started to reinvestigate the story of Lancelot, just thanks to Dante. Because he's writing this in the 14th century. So what did he have around to draw from literary sources? So Lancelot comes up pretty soon in like the 5th or 6th canto, and I don't know what the purpose is of Lancelot. like what's the story? It's like love is great, but duty. You know, like I don't know what the point of like what's the moral lesson we're supposed to take away
I don't know.
from Lancelot. I've been thinking about that, and I've been thinking about like maybe knights were never chivalrous or something. You know, like maybe anyway. So the point that I'm saying all this is that like I was just recently writing a song about Lancelot because I felt like I tend to do that sometimes. Like I wrote a song about Alfred, called The Butler from Batman.
Nice.
You know,
Nice.
so I tend to like I don't know. I tend to read this stuff and then I find like a character and I try to sort of empathically resonate with that character.
That's a great songwriting prompt, though. That's a great way to spark songwriting. Like.
So like for Lancelot, man, I'm just like, well, this poor dude, Lancelot, like, I'll bet you, and I was wondering, because I don't know anything about this, but one of my questions that's come up through all of my reading that I can't seem to really find an answer to, but what I've seen to be pointed towards is that the topic of like love and romance and like romanticism of like the possibility of a soulmate and that you will encounter this soulmate throughout sometime in your life, like this concept of love as we take as already always occurring, man, has only really been around since like the Middle Ages, like around the time when Lancelot would be written or said to be held, right? But this is before philosophy ever had love as a subject. This is before modernity ever had eros as this thing we pursue or something,
Yeah.
So I just wondered, like, was Lancelot was he just not aware of the possibility of like what a woman's gaze might do to him? And so then I think about, maybe he just was not aware of it, had no prior heads up, and he erected an entire empire sort of thing and double crossed his best friend. Does he, and then I read all that stuff and then I go listen to like Dr. John's like, just if I don't do it, somebody else will sort of thing.
That's what I was going to say. It sounds like a song. There's a song there.
It sounds like it's a whole song there. I've written some of the stuff already, around. But I'm like, how? And it's like, if you're going to write about Lancelot, that better be a good song because I'm already cheesed out. By the time you start saying Lance, by the time you get to a lot, I'm like, all right, you guys going to talk about King Arthur. I'm out.
No, that's when I want to hear it. Dude, and but you know what though? It's no mistake that around that time, the traditional version of what we consider the ballad showed up, Like that's the time. I mean, that's the time before you have any kind of means to record, you have troubadours, like literally have troubadours that memorize hundreds and hundreds of lines of these ballads, often to bring news to other provinces. Like they would memorize all these things and then they became broadsides, which basically, written down when the printing press happened. And then those ballads became what we consider ballads, like traditional ballads, and then came over from from Britain and got trapped in the Appalachian Mountains and became country music. Like that is weird. It's weird how all that stuff but it all came from, this is an easy way to transfer this information from this town to another town, memorizing it in a sing-song fashion, and I'll go to people and I'll sing it to them, to getting written down eventually. And it's just crazy the way that, I was originally going to do when I was doing my radio show, I was going to do a whole show on ballads, and it got such an massive task, and I couldn't organize everything, and it's just
somehow
I'm
imagining Gordon Lightfoot trying to tell the news of the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald by traveling around or something.
Dude, that's exactly what it is. That song for as cheesy it can be. I love that song.
I love that song.
Historically accurate. It's very 70s and people. Well, I don't think it's cheesy. A lot of people
like 70s. Yeah,
I love it.
I love it, man.
I don't think that song is cheesy.
I want to cover it, but it's so many lyrics.
It's so long.
It's a long.
Have you heard Tony Rice's cover of it?
I love it. I love that version.
So good.
Yeah, it's
God, dude, it's so good. Yeah. No, but that is what a ballad is. I mean, a ballad, you basically, and just in true ballad fashion, the record Edmund Fitzgerald does not have a chorus. They did not have choruses. It's got a riff, but there's no main chorus, and that was what it was. It was verses, just all verses telling this historical story or telling the news basically to the next town. Fascinating.
Are we done with that tangent, or can you get back to Carrie?
Ballads. I can talk about ballads forever.
All right. So back to the ballad of Carrie Denniston.
Yes. Sorry, Carrie.
That's one I want to hear.
I wanted to gauge your insight of you played the festival last year. I can finally say last year. We've been saying.
I know.
I've been saying last year for a year now.
2 days in.
But 2 days in is finally last year, the 2023 festival. And it was your first time playing it. And I just wanted to know, what was your experience like from the inside out?
Oh my gosh. I mean, it was like nothing I've ever been a part of. It was an emotional overload. I was so moved by every songwriter that I listened to that I felt like drained at the end, and yet somehow very alive. I was really affected by this festival. Seriously, I was in love with every second of it. I was also moving out of my apartment the same weekend.
Oh, I remember that. Yes, I remember.
Yeah.
Wonderful timing.
No, I know. I mean, my lease was up. I didn't plan this, but
on our end.
But no, I freaking loved it. I left.
It was cold that day.
It was a little chilly. But
yeah.
I prefer that to being sweaty on stage. Honestly,
Yeah.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
But no, there were so many acts I heard that, you know, I just left like a new fan of songwriters I hadn't heard before. And I was so honored that I was playing at this festival, that Adam Carroll was friggin' headlining. I've been an Adam Carroll fan for so long.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, it was a whirlwind. I felt like it went by super fast, and it was overwhelming in the best way. And I'm so excited to be a part of it again. I'm like, I hope I'm in Corpus for a long time and I can be a part of it every year.
Yeah, we're excited that we announced basically today, the day that recording this anyway, that you will be a part of the 2024 Fest, and we're excited to have you. I wanted to talk a little about, did you attend any of the workshops by chance? Were you able to?
I did, yeah. Okay. The one that Adam and Chris Carroll did, I was there for. I had to leave early to go play at Bus, but
that's right.
Yeah, but I mean, I heard there's going to be one about looping this year. Is that right?
Oh, maybe.
Maybe.
But that's.
I thought you guys said it on the podcast.
Did we?
I'm not giving away any secrets.
If we said it on the podcast, then yes, that's true. Yes.
Which I'm so excited about, because I am so like dying to start doing that, and I have no idea how. I bought a keyboard that like apparently has the capability, and I just don't know where to begin with it. So I'm so excited. Actually, my first I hadn't moved to Corpus yet, but I was staying with my parents a lot in Corpus, you know, kind of one foot out the door, a couple years ago. And I went to Surf Club, and it was like my first Corpus Christi music scene experience. Rudy Yanis was playing, and he's so good. I mean, he sounds like a full band by himself, like a calypso. I don't know. And I was just like, okay, Corpus has a music scene. Like, this is good. I mean, this sounds like something you'd hear in Austin. I was so impressed. And that day and it was a beautiful day, and I went swimming in the salt water, and I heard Rudy Yanis, and I was like, all right, I can live here.
This is all right.
I'm gonna start a new life here. It's gonna be great. But anyway, that's where looping comes in. He's so good at looping. I don't know if he ever is involved with the songwriter stuff, but
he's been a host or in the rounds before.
Cool. Yeah. Awesome.
I think he played either a first or second festival too.
I think so. Yeah, nice. I'm trying to remember. Yeah,
he's really good.
He's awesome at that. Matt has gotten really good at looping too.
Martinez.
Matt Martinez. He's like just
Matt Man.
He's just taking off.
I still haven't seen him and Kat live, which is crazy, but I've heard them in their videos on Instagram, and they're awesome. And Kat is so like supportive of other musicians. She's always awesome. Sharing everyone's stuff, and I love that. Like, not competition. Like, we're all in this together. Let's support each other. We're a community, and she really seems to have that like vibe about her. I feel like when I hear a really great female singer or songwriter, I do get the little like green-eyed monster urge inside me, and I hate it, and so I'll like be overly supportive and complimentary just to try and kill it. I don't know why I don't get that when I hear great male musicians. It's terrible. I hate this about myself. But I'm like, I can just appreciate a male songwriter, whereas a female.
I hate all of them.
Female songwriter. Like I told Shayna Sands, like, you make me want to quit music. I mean, and I mean it in the best way, but like, she's so good. She's so interesting. Like her style is so unique. Her voice is gorgeous. It doesn't sound like it's from this era, and she's so good at guitar too. Like,
she's awesome.
Forget about it. She's so good. I hate it.
She's definitely one of our favorites.
Yeah.
And I wanted to know what's your stance on bass players.
Oh, here we go. Here it is.
You know, I've never really
Since you hate male songwriters, I just figured I'd throw that in there.
No, I hate female songwriters. I'm just kidding. I don't hate
female
I don't hate anyone.
That's right. No, it's Garrett that like
I hate male songwriters.
All right.
I'm just kidding.
I've never had a strong stance on bass players. I love bass, though. I feel like nothing. There's nothing I love more than a good bass line coming in on my song. Like I feel it in my bones. But no, I was always partial to drummers but you're not asking me about my dating history. I don't have a strong stance on bass players. I know you guys do.
We wouldn't be talking about your dating history since we're talking about bass players, of course. You know.
What about Rick Danko, man? Come on, Rick the band. He is a great bass player.
No.
Yeah, but I mean, I only have eyes for Levon, so.
Same.
All right. Well, back to me bringing up the festival. The whole point of me, asking about the workshop and everything. You talked about the looping, and you're excited for that workshop that we may or may not be doing. We will be doing. But is there anything else you'd like to see in a workshop or try to take away from the festival?
I don't know if this is a reasonable request, but the thing I have the hardest time with is a bridge when it hasn't come to me naturally and I know a song needs it. I don't know if there's a technique that like everybody knows that I'm not aware of like how to pull it out. Like is there a formula for what chord I should jump to? I mean, I not that I want to use a formula. I want it to be unique. I don't want us to all just be like churning out whatever, like generic stuff. But if someone felt like a bridge expert and wanted to do a workshop on that, I would be very interested.
I would too. You know who talks about that a little bit though in his workshop, or he did last year or this year? Well, yeah, last year. Michael O'Connor. He talks about the circle of fifths and talks about like the chords that feel the best when you're going to a bridge. So that kind of like you should pick his brain when you're at the festival because he's pretty good at that. Walt Wilkins was like in his workshop is like, you don't need a bridge. I was like, what, dude? Come on.
A lot of times you're just forcing it. If you write a song, you're like, well, maybe I need a bridge, and sometimes you don't. It all depends. But now, I saw a talk with Michael McNevin.
We'll have a bridge workshop right now.
Yes,
which is one of the headliners, Michael McNevin. He talked about how he wrote this song that had 5 verses, 4 verses, whatever, and it got pretty repetitive, so might as well just turn one of those verses into a bridge. And he used the circle of fifths and all that kind of stuff.
Nice.
So all of everything that you just brought up, Garrett, through all the other people, it comes up. But I don't know if a full workshop on a bridge is something that's necessary, but it could be.
I would be into it. Yeah. Because Walt, to be fair to Walt though, like Walt was also writing from that, late 2000s or early late 2000s or late 90s, early 2000s, like Nashville, like they don't do bridges. They do 2 verses. They do a verse, chorus, solo, chorus, and then that's it, like they don't really. So from his perspective, like when for the audience he's writing for people that want to pick up those songs, other songwriters, they're going to be like, we don't need a bridge here. Like, so I think it's all dependent on what's your audience,
No, my first real band, Jim and I.
Yes.
My cousin Nathan played lead everywhere. So it was, couple verses, a chorus, lead,
a solo,
verse.
Hell
chorus. long lead and then chorus at the end, and it was very loosely structured because of that. But
most classic rock bands.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Right. Well, I'm like, that's my current, it's all I'm thinking about is, I think you guys were all there at the last in the rounds. I wrote, I'm getting married at the end of the month, and I wrote.
Oh shit! I think I told you to write a bridge to the song.
You did, and you were right. I already knew. Okay. No, it is your fault. Well, no, because you confirmed what I think I already knew and didn't want to admit, which is that it needs a bridge. But because you're right. There's a perfect moment in the song. But sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. I wrote my vows as a song for those listening who didn't, who don't know this. So it's very personal, and maybe I don't need a bridge to play it for like my friends and family and the groom, right? Like they probably aren't going to be like, can't believe you didn't put a bridge in your vows.
Where's the bridge? Really?
But I mean, I feel like I want it to be finished when I play it, right? So if there's going to be a bridge, I want to do it before the end of the month. So it's just like I've been racking my brain every day. I just like sit at the piano and twiddle around, and I just don't even know where to begin. I hate forcing it because it should feel natural. Yeah. This is a personal, like, love song, and I don't want it to feel like I just yanked some cliche out of the sky to put in my bridge, Yeah. So it tortures me. I mean, all day and all night I think about this bridge.
Send it to me, Carrie. Send it.
Yeah, you think you can come up with something?
Oh, I like bridges. I don't know.
Yeah, all right. Maybe you should do the workshop.
Any of the three of us. Man, I'm not very. I don't know. I don't know if I could do a workshop.
You guys ever had someone write a bridge for you or write a chorus that like makes your song? Like, do you have any songs in your repertoire that you hold that way?
Not that I can think of.
Kind of, yeah.
I mean, Josh and I co-write, and it's one of us occasionally, so one of us comes up with that part, and I don't know if that's speaking to exactly what you're talking about.
I mean, I have like one song that I think I did a small little recording of it on my cell phone or something, and I placed it on this Facebook songwriter group.
Oh, okay.
And then a guy, this was about 4 or 5 years ago, a guy named Luke Turner hit me up and said, "Hey, I think I'd like a shot at this." And I'm like, "Sure, okay, great." And I was like, "You a guitar player?" He's like, "No, I'm just a lyricist." I was like, "Oh, okay." Well,
okay.
A couple days later, he sent me the lyrics, and I was like, "Shit, I have the exact like chord progression I was looking to go to with this stuff," and really made the song. And I haven't recorded it, and I want to put it on an album, and promised him that I would do that, and put his name in the liners and stuff. But it's one of like the songs that I it's like top 5. I feel like top shelf sort of songs. For me personally. So.
That's pretty
anyway,
cool.
So yeah, the whole bridge thing, man. I'm a big fan of guitar solos instead of bridges.
I am too, though.
Really,
it's an easy bridge.
See, I love guitar solos.
I like bridges that are instrumental bridges that
Me too.
That are guitar solos, but they change key or they do something. Yeah, they modulate in some capacity.
That's the Brian Wilson in you.
Yeah, exactly. But we brought up, Jules brought it up, and it's like a natural segue. Have you ever done any collaboration?
Yes, but only with like people I'm very, very close to. I don't think it would come naturally to me otherwise. But my sister's a songwriter. Nice. Best songwriter I've ever heard. Hands down, no contest. Better than Bob Dylan. Yeah. Oh yeah. Really? She's incredible. She's doesn't play as much lately. She's got 2 kids, and her and her husband, they live in Montana. They have this like pioneer life, and
oh man.
They like live off the land,
What?
I mean, she might be writing, she's just not recording. So I haven't heard anything from her in recent years, but she used to be so prolific, and every song she wrote would be like the greatest song I'd ever heard. I mean, she's incredible. Her name's Daphne Denniston. She's got music on all platforms.
Nice. I like the alliteration in her name.
Yeah, I know. Daphne is such a cool name. I got Carrie, which is like a family name, but anyway. So her and I collaborated a couple times. Nice. My best friend in college, who was my guitarist, Jake Neese, and I collaborated a couple times, and then me and Tony. And all of those projects turned out well. but I don't like, if I were just to be put in a room with any songwriter, I would have a really hard time like being vulnerable enough to write a song together. I think it's not something that comes easy to me. There's got to be like a lot of drinking involved too. I feel like
it's tough. It's tough. It's tough. That's what Walt. Going back to Walt Wilkins. That's basically he talked about the style of songwriting they were doing. They paired him up with some guy and they pumped out songs. That was basically what they did. And he, I mean, to his credit, he hated it and didn't. It's like, I never want to do that again. I'd rather just write for So, but that's how a lot of those dudes. I mean, a lot of all of the 90s country hits, like if you look at them, it's the same, like 3 dudes and they were just they were pumping them out. They were pumping out songs like an 8 to 5 job pretty much.
It's what it is in Nashville.
Yeah.
A lot of those guys are like staff writers for Atlantic and stuff.
Yeah.
And so they if you spend 5 years, writing 40 hours a week, man, your standards, I imagine that during the course of, writing 40 hours a week, you probably write some songs that you keep for yourself.
Yeah.
Yep. I think it might have been one of the most horrific things about songwriting I ever read was I don't want to say this was like an interview with Dean Dillon in like American Songwriter magazine where Tony Brown summoned him basically to his office, and Tony Brown was like the keyboard player for Elvis. He's the guy that gets all the songs for like George Strait and shit, and he said he wanted to give him like $200,000 for Easy Come Girl, Easy Go. And he was like, that's supposed to be the hit single off my next album. And the guy said, well, I'll give you $200,000 for it. And in this article, he says like, he was like, I gave up on one of my dreams that day.
Yeah.
But I took that money because I had a house and twin boys. Yep. And I knew that the money would go a long way.
Yeah.
And then there was another part of the article where they asked him, how do you know, like, when you've written a good song? And he said, the other day I've been writing a song for years, and the last few lines came to me, and the song is called A Good Year for the Roses.
Oh, yeah.
And he said he got up and he went in his backyard and he vomited.
That's how you know.
Incredible shit like that. Just like, compelling. Wow. Yeah.
It's a way to celebrate. That's actually what I was going to say about your song, Carrie, with the bridge. I know you're trying to like rush it to try to get it done, finished for your wedding coming up, but don't rush it. Maybe the bridge will be an answer to something months, years down the road or whatever. Yeah. And you can play it. Maybe it comes live. When you're playing it live, you have this idea, whatever. Don't rush it. Let it be a natural thing. That's my 2 cents on that.
I agree.
These two might disagree. Yeah. Oh,
no, I agree. I agree. Because you're speaking of audience, knowing your audience, Carrie, you're right. They're not going to be like, where the hell's the bridge, Carrie?
I don't know. My sister will be there, so she might.
Your sister may be. Oh, gosh, maybe.
She's like, I liked it. No bridge.
Where's the bridge? You could just have one of us come play a guitar solo in the middle of it.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
As long as it changes keys. Yeah.
Actually, Rudy's playing at the wedding.
Is he?
Yeah,
nice.
Like during the cocktail hour. And there's not like a dancing kind of wedding. It's just like let's have some drinks and cool.
Nice.
But anyway, yeah. So he'll be there. Maybe he can come in on guitar.
Oh, yes.
There you go. It's perfect.
I was gonna say you could get some inspiration from reading like old love letters. Like I found that Dante has a collection of poems that he wrote in praise of Beatrice called Novo or something like that.
I've heard of this, Jules.
But anyway, so like I like to think that I have a pretty nice pen when it comes to writing letters of affection or whatever. Like I can write a letter. I can communicate well. Mastery of the English language. Great. Go read Dante's love letters to Beatrice. I'm like, boys, I got to step this up. This is not like, it's like, it's pretty amazing the kind of some of the sentiments of like courtly love that are expressed that like will kind of, you literally said you didn't want to reach for the stars or something like that to bring something in, but maybe that's exactly what the bridge needs to be, is about like Dante says, I met her when sun was in 9 degrees or something like that, or when the sun was in its 9th degree, and I met her again when I was in its second 9th degree or something.
Just like beautiful, crazy lines.
That's what I'm saying, man. These it's like, this better be beautiful or I'm getting a restraining order sort of thing. You know?
Who writes really good bridges? I'm trying to think of artists that write. Bob writes really good bridges. Like, it pulls them out of nowhere sometimes, it seems.
Will Hogue is a guy who is a writer's writer that I am always in awe of his musical bridges.
I don't know that guy.
Writing that down.
Will Hoge. He's criminally underrated. You
brought him up with Walt Wilkins.
I did. I think I brought him up with Emma James too.
All right. He's
all right, I'm officially checking him out.
Yeah, I just wrote it down.
But you know what's weird or interesting about Bob and his bridges? Like, I mean, because the dude's a sponge. Like, he just like listens to everything and has. If you've ever listened to his radio show, the guy has knowledge that just from everything, like from the beginning of music till now. But
does he know about fascists in the Catholic Church?
He probably does. It's Bob, but he like absorbs stuff, and so like when you hear a bridge, there's nothing that Bob does that isn't like borrowed very gingerly from other things, because that's just what he does, and he does it in such a way that it's still him. Like I don't know if you ever heard the song. It's one of his piano songs. It's called "Sign on the Window," and it's on New Morning. And it's like it's like a gorgeous kind of a soul song. It's almost like kind of an Aretha Franklin feel, but with Bob singing, if you can imagine. And he's got gospel singers singing in the background, but he goes to a bridge. It's just insane. And I've never been able to figure out what the hell he does. And then it's just a couple of chords of strangeness and goes right back to the original chords and somehow makes it back to the verse. I don't know. You got to listen to it because it just kind of blows my mind. I always love that bridge because it's, like, where the hell did you pull that out? This guy that we think of as a folkie, started as a folkie, is pulling a bridge from like Tin Pan Alley or like Broadway or like, just weird. Yeah. I think it's, if you keep your ears open, there's always some weird influence from everything you hear, basically. And that's kind of what Bob does. Yeah. He's just a sponge. There's nothing that he says or does that isn't a reference to something else, which is crazy.
I remember, I played a show at the Colony Cafe in Woodstock, New York. And I was playing with a pedal steel player. And it was around Dylan's birthday around that time. And so I was like, dude, we're playing in Woodstock. We're going to learn a Dylan tune.
Yep.
And I remember like going through some of his catalog and thinking like, what is coverable? And I ended up settling on this song I really adore called "I Threw It All Away."
So good.
And I think it's on the
It's on Nashville Skyline.
Nashville Skyline,
gorgeous chords.
Yeah. The structure of that song and just the way that it's arranged, bridge-wise too, is incredible.
Very surprising.
Slick. Like very surprising, not predictable, but your ear can still follow it. And it's almost like the listener is just gently guided through these like kind of brief moments of unfamiliarness, I suppose, back into the loving arms of the last chorus you're already familiar with,
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it's just so Yeah.
There's a lot of major minor switches on that song that I love, dude. Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that song. I'd forgotten about that song, but it's so good. Actually, all of Nashville Skyline. I love that album.
It's
such a good album.
And that's what's his name? On bass, man.
Oh my God. You know a bass player?
Right.
It's not, who's the bass on that one? Is that not Kenny Buttrick?
I don't know why my Devil Went Down to Georgia guy.
Who is that?
Literally, it's that dude,
it's all Nashville
Charlie.
Cats on there. Yes, Charlie McCoy.
No. It's literally. Why am I blanking on this name right now? The guy who sings "Devil Went Down to Georgia," the fiddle guy. That's who played bass.
Oh, Charlie Daniels.
Charlie Daniels played bass.
Does he play bass on that?
Yeah, Charlie Daniels plays bass on that album.
Dude, I didn't know that.
Which is wild. Yeah.
Isn't Sneaky Pete's on pedal steel on that album? I know he's in some of those early Nashville things. You guys know of Sneaky Pete Kleinow? Played with the Flying Burrito Brothers and a lot of those early like country rock bands. And then his second career, is a special effects artist on a bunch of movies. Like, created all these gore effects for these movies that I love. So, very strange.
And you know, that's Cindy Castor on the Time Out of Mind album.
Yeah,
and,
she's amazing.
She's incredible. She's just, you know, lives in Woodstock, man.
I know.
You see her from time to time.
Yeah.
Like, wow. And, you know, just be playing out. Like, I remember when I have these videos on YouTube of me playing at Rockwood Music Hall right before I was going downstairs on stage 3 to go play that and realized that Amy Helm was playing upstairs with Cindy Cash Dollar sitting in.
Amazing.
And I was like, God damn, I don't even want to go play my show now.
No.
You know? I want to just sit up here and watch them, you know.
Wow.
So good.
So Carrie,
Jimmy.
I know. I always have to bring it back.
Thank you, Jimmy.
Yeah.
Tangents.
I want to know how you would describe your music to somebody if they just walked in or like, what do you play?
Oh my God. And that's the hardest question. I've never been able to answer that properly. So like you tend to like tell them people you've been compared to, but then you sound like so arrogant. Like I'm not going to tell people Bonnie Raitt and then like have them expect that. And I'm going to be like, oh my God, please. No, I'm not even a fraction of what oh my God, no. But I mean, I don't know. Am I soul? Am I like, I feel like when I tell people I'm songwritery, that's the closest I can get to like my sound. Because when I'm by myself, it's, you know, it's not particularly like belty or loud. Like if I'm with a band, I'm Janising it up, right? Like I want to belt and get weird with it. But by myself, I'm like vulnerable and scared and awkward and like I don't know. And it's usually sad love songs and I don't know. I have a really hard time picking a genre. Tony called it blue-eyed soul.
I like
that's
that
actually
phrase.
a really good description of it. Yeah.
I like that phrase.
Stuck with that. I mean, freaking Tony, he's magic. I mean, really, like that just came out of his mouth, and I guess that was, you know, a term back in the '60s for like the Righteous Brothers and like, you know, the kind of soul that wasn't coming from black voices. But I hadn't heard the term before, so I fell in love with it, and kind of I stuck with it. I still use it. To this day.
I think that's pretty appropriate. Yeah, I think that works.
So and
No, I would run
day,
with that. Yeah.
Yeah. To this day, how many songs do you think you've written and how many of those do you still play?
Oh, wow.
It's a weird question, Jim. It makes sense, but
yeah.
I mean, I've probably written, it's pathetic compared to what you guys have probably written, but maybe... I mean, I just feel like you guys are all super in it, and you really you pump out a lot of good songs. But I've maybe written 30 to 40 songs, and I think I play probably 20 of them.
Yeah, that's
Awesome.
a pretty good rate.
Yeah,
That's actually a good ratio.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I think so.
Very good ratio. Yeah.
I think you said like
You know.
one of the someone said that they had to write 300 songs before they wrote one good song, and like
well, I didn't say they were good, but I played them anyway.
But songs that you
Well, songs that you would play in front of people.
Right.
exactly.
Well,
And also it's the ebb and flow. Like the songs I thought were good enough to play when I was in high school,
Exactly.
I don't pull out and play anymore.
No.
But
it's interesting.
yeah.
No, it's like that song I played at the last in the rounds. I didn't play it for years because I thought it sucked. Because, you know, my sister probably wouldn't even remember this comment. Like she made it offhand.
No.
It was probably sandwiched in a bunch of compliments about other songs, and she just like happened to say like, "Oh, that one's not your best." And I was like, "Oh no, this song
What a piece of
sucks."
garbage.
Yeah, right. So I never played it again until I was the featured songwriter at In the Rounds, and my mom was there, and it's my mom's favorite song I'd ever written.
Yeah, I remember this song. Yeah.
Yeah, and of
It's
course,
a good song.
right. My mom loved it. Why didn't that opinion matter? I only listened to the criticism, obviously.
Because your sister's a songwriter.
Well, that's part of it, yeah. But
apparently better than Bob Dylan too.
Yes.
So.
okay, well, she's gonna be so mad I said that because no one in this world loves Bob Dylan more than my sister. So she's gonna be so mad that I said that. But anyway, Sacarene, Matt Hull's wife, came up to me
yeah.
after I played that song, and she was crying, and she
That's right.
said it spoke to her, and she brought it back to life. It's like, now I don't think it sucks anymore. Like, if it spoke to this person who I happen to think is a wonderful person too, and is married to a songwriter and is very much heavily involved in like music, she loved it. It meant something to her. So that song is back as far as I'm concerned. I'm not retiring it anymore.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why critique can only it doesn't go that far. It's very subjective.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
never, you learn to take the good and the bad and throw away anything that you want, the things that don't matter. So
yeah, I'm learning. Yeah,
you grow,
it's
and
taken
you
years,
sometimes
but
you write stuff too, though, sometimes, and grow into it later on. It's weird.
Yeah.
Like you're not ready for it sometimes, or it means something different when you come back to it. But this also goes back to the, like, once you've written a song, is it really even your song anymore? You played it for folks and they, like Sansere, they've interpreted it and felt it deeply. And like, what, this is like, it becomes this thing that's outside of you, which is a crazy thing to think of, right? Like, I made this thing that somebody else emotionally connected with.
yeah.
And it wasn't just me. It's not just me. It's not just in my head, It's kind of a cool thing.
There's like no better compliment than someone crying at my song. I swear. I mean, it's terrible, but I love it. Like,
no, it's awesome.
It's not that I wish them pain. It's that we have a connection now.
Yeah, it's awesome.
You have a connection. It's enjoyable, or it's like it's an affirmation of like, to me, it's like, I feel like it's like a machine gun I don't want to fire, man.
Yeah.
It's like I don't want to I don't want to inspire like sobbing at times, or at least if I do, then it has to be a moment in a like a moment where everything slows down so that we can maybe speed back up, right?
Yeah.
I've got some songs that I don't play specifically because anytime I've shown them to people, they have cried. Mm-hmm. And it's like sometimes that's information too, man.
I don't
you
pull
get that,
that
and
one
you're
out.
like, all right.
it depends on the time and place.
Yeah.
Yeah. And do you have it together to play that stuff then at that time? Because who knows, with the opportunities are few and far between, maybe you don't even remember that song,
Yeah.
But I think about that a lot, man. Of like, I was telling like Emma the other day, like I was playing Goodbye at the Exchange, and there's a woman in the front row and just sobbing.
Yeah.
Dude.
That song, man.
I had somehow just kind of forgot that like the song has this affect or something, and so I'm just playing, wondering like, why is she so sad? Did her boyfriend break up with her, or and then I'm like, oh yeah, wait a second, this is a really sad song, dude.
It is, but it's so good.
It's sad, but it's almost like.
So good.
It's like, wow, I didn't know everybody in the audience were like, masochists here. Y'all enjoying this.
I want to cry.
Like, why is this enjoyable? I question. We're all crying because we're enjoying this so much.
No, that's interesting. Anyway. I do, because I'm horribly humiliated if I'm crying at someone playing. Like, I don't want to be doing that in public. It has to really be affecting me because I'm not trying to do this. Like, this is awful.
I'm sorry I'm ruining your show by crying.
Right.
And allergies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Does anyone have anything else?
You got to ask your question, dude.
I know. Didn't want to cut somebody off.
Oh, yes, the question.
Well,
the almost famous question.
Yeah, apparently you're an avid listener, so
she knows.
I don't need to preface this question, so I'll just ask it. Our almost famous question: what do you, Carrie Denniston, dig about music?
Friggin' Jimmy, do you remember that you asked me this question on stage at In the Rounds?
Yes.
The first time I played, I think.
Of course you did.
Yeah, I usually do it for the first time performer. Yeah.
That's like really mean. It's such a heavy question. It's so loaded. And I panicked. I think I said, what don't I love about music? And I instantly hated.
Answer.
No, I hated that. I was like, that's a cop-out. I sound like such a loser.
The answer in the movie is a cop-out too. Everything. I mean, It's a poetic, but still it's a compliment.
Yeah.
Well, but anyway, I've had a lot of time now to mull it over. So,
all right, here's your second chance.
Yeah, I really have come up with so many. There's a ton of things I could say. I just keep coming back to the fact, though, that I can't explain it. Like, I can't explain music. Like, that's what I love about it. That it's such a mystery. None of us can give a scientific explanation for why it draws this like visceral reaction from us, why it impacts us so much, like to our core. And it actually reminds me of the Catholic Church.
Bringing it all back around to the Catholic Church. My mom will be excited.
Oh, good. Mine too. Although I think I swore earlier. I was going to not swear because my mom is definitely going to listen to this. But anyway. No, it reminds me of how the Catholic Church describes God as this beautiful mystery, that we will never comprehend God. Well, it's beyond human comprehension. And yet we're supposed to live our lives with God at the center. We're supposed to follow God and love God and fear God, and he's supposed to be everything, right? But we don't even understand what he is or what it means or any of it. I mean, I think it's extremely confusing and frustrating for people, but it reminds me so much of music. I feel like music, especially for musicians or people who truly appreciate music is at the center of our lives, right? It's like at our cores, it's a part of our souls, it's everything we love, it's of the utmost importance, and yet we don't get it. We can't even explain it. And I just choose to, rather than being frustrated by that, just see beauty in it. I think it's a beautiful mystery, much like God. I don't know, that every answer I came up with traced back to that, so it seemed like a good route.
Yeah.
Better than
beautiful answer.
Better than
That's
what
a good answer.
I love about music.
I've
been kicking myself about that answer for a year.
No. I mean, that's not a bad answer either, though. Like you know,
no,
it's a cop out.
So when can we see you next?
At the Songwriters Festival. I haven't been gigging much lately, so.
So at the moment you'll be playing Saturday, right? Saturday, February 17th. Is that correct?
Yes, at 2 p.m. I think.
All right. During the festival.
Actually, no. My next gig is my vows at my wedding.
That's right.
If anybody's invited to my wedding, you'll see me there.
That's
nice.
That's an important one.
Nice.
All right. Well, congratulations on the wedding.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And can't wait to see you at the festival. And if not before then, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks, Carrie.
And yeah, until next time, it's been a pleasure.
Thanks for having me, guys. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
All right.
Bye, Carrie.
Bye.
Bye.